God doesn't pick people who are capable of big things. He picks people that he can work through to create big things, that will have the faith to take the next steps, even when they don't have all the answers, even when it doesn't make sense, even when you don't know how you're going to pull it off. And I promise you, more and more great things will come into your life. If you miss this piece and you only listen to all the other stuff, you will not create the rich life that you deserve, because a rich life is not an accumulation of wealth. It's what you do with the life force that you have while you're here. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the show. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today as we uncover part 2 of the 12 mindsets to win at life and business. And if you are just catching this one, but you didn't hear part 1, you'll want to go back an episode or 2 to catch the first part, as we are going to unpack the next 6 mindsets. Today, we're going to pick it up with number 7. Number 7 is intuition. One of the key pieces to really win, no matter if it's your life, your business, your wealth, success, whatever part that you're looking at growing, is following your intuition. This can be a really confusing topic because I know, especially those listeners of the show, you love the strategies, the practical how-tos, the step-by-step. But the one thing that we can't ever seem to explain or ever really put our finger on or explain well is to teach people how to follow their intuition or how to listen to their gut instinct. So this is something that gets missed commonly. And look, this isn't following your intuition, and then you sit on a chair and the answer is revealed to you. I mean, I do believe that to a certain degree, but you have to take action with intuition because you get a lot of clarity when you're in motion. Because at the end of the day, you can get all of the advice from mentors and people that you respect and people who have done it. But when you're faced with a difficult decision, when you kind of come to that fork in the road, if you will, and you're not sure which way to go, the best way to really discern is to pause, get quiet, listen to your intuition. The thing about instinct and intuition is it's quiet. It's more like a whisper. Your intellect, your brain, your intelligence tends to be louder, but your instinct is quite softer. And if this isn't something that you have tuned into or been able to really dial down and get this clear and operate from a place of instinct, then I want you to use the pause reprogram. I talk about this in Wealth Habits, my book. It's taking that first half of 1 second when you have a conscious decision right before your subconscious kicks in and helps you make that decision. Take 1 second and pause and allow your instinct to whisper before your intellect or your intelligence kicks in and your mind responds. Not listening to our instincts can actually take us down a road full of mistakes and regret, which then leads to this victimization spiral that I talk about, as opposed to consciously choosing to follow our instinct, which will take us down a much more empowered path. So this applies in our business, like so many times, circumstances that came before me or you, or a decision that's in front of us. Sometimes you can't quite put your finger on why it felt like one or the other was the right decision. But if you always trust your instinct, more often than not, you'll make the best decision. I can tell you in my life, the times that I didn't follow my instinct, the times that I ignored that intuition and tried to rationalize a reason of why I should be taking the next step or doing this thing or not doing this thing, are all of the same times that I had mistakes, chaos, failure, pain in my life. And on the flip side, there's been so many times in my life where there was a decision before me and it really didn't make sense to do it. You know, whether it was buying a building and then deciding, you know what, instead of actually flipping that building and renovating it, I'm going to allow a nonprofit to use it for as long as it wants for free. It just felt like the right thing, even though it sounded crazy intellectually. The same thing when I was deciding to move across the country and I didn't know a soul where I was going to move. Intelligently, that sounded sounded dumb. When I knew people in other states, but I didn't choose those states, but I had such a strong instinct to do it anyways, even when consciously it didn't quite make sense. Listening to that voice, the whispers, if you will, and not being distracted by the bazillion other thoughts in your mind will typically lead you down the right path. Your intuition can be that internal compass, that guidance that's going to direct you down the path and open more doors to things that you or I couldn't even do on our own. I often say that there are so many things in the last 25 years that I've done and that I've accomplished, and it wasn't on my ability. It wasn't me doing it. It was literally me trusting my instinct, following my intuition, and allowing God to work through me, giving me far more capabilities than I ever had on my own. And now that might not be God for you. It might be the universe or source, but whatever you believe. For me, it was really understanding that God doesn't pick people who are capable of big things. He picks people that he can work through to create big things that will have the faith to take the next steps, even when they don't have all the answers, even when it doesn't make sense, even when you don't know how you're going to pull it off. Discerning between your instinct and your intellect is always going to take you down a much better path than what you could have done on your own. And when you are ever at an intersection where you are struggling and gripping with what decision to make, I want to share with you one of the most powerful questions that I have ever asked myself, and that continues to guide me when I am trying to make tough decisions and I'm maybe not clearly hearing which way to go, or I'm not quiet enough to let that instinct, or I'm not patient enough to let my intuition kick in. And it's this. I want you to write this down. Here's the question you ask yourself. Does this decision take me one step closer or one step further away from the ultimate vision and purpose for my life? I'm going to say it again. Does this decision take me closer to or further away from the vision and mission I have for my life? The answer that you get will speak volumes and give you all that you need to know. Now it's just up to you to have faith to follow it. Number 8, learn to love fear. This kind of goes along with the storms and the responsibilities of the prior episode. Learning to love the fear by expanding yourself, pushing yourself beyond what's comfortable to you. That's when you're going to create a whole new level of life. And look, it's scary. I get it. I've done it over and over and over. And there is so much fear there. There's so much risk, but being okay with the risk, being okay with the feeling of living on the edge, pushing yourself to the edge of what you're comfortable and wondering, oh my gosh, what if this doesn't work out? When you are in those moments, I want you to flip the script and ask yourself, what if this works out better than I can even imagine? But if you don't have that feeling like, what am I doing? Who am I? Then you are most likely coasting. You're most likely being mediocre. You're playing small and you're not living up to the potential that you possibly could have in your life. But if you can't learn to adapt, learn to grow in fear, you're always going to stay in the same place. You know, it just reminds me of actually just a few days ago, or maybe it was a week or so ago now, that I was getting my nails done. I found this lady that I love, and we just normally small talk, small conversations. And I don't know what happened the last time I was there, but I really wanted to start learning more about her. So I started asking more questions and getting a little deeper than just the normal conversation inside of a salon. And I'd assumed, because so many other people that work there were from Vietnam, that that's where she was from. And we go to chat for a little bit further, and she tells me that she's actually from Cambodia. And I was like, wow. So I started asking more questions, like, when did you come to this country? And how long have you been here? And her English is really, really great. So I had known she'd been here for a long time. And she started to tell me the story, how when she was 19 years old, her and her brother ran to get out of Cambodia because of all of the war that was going on. And she went to a refugee camp. And now you can be in a refugee camp. I don't know if you knew this, but I didn't know this. Like, you can actually be in a refugee camp for a really long time and possibly never get out. Or you could be one of the lucky ones and someone can sponsor you. And then once that person sponsors you, you have an opportunity to get to America. And then once that person gets to America, then someone else can sponsor. And so it normally takes almost like a lottery situation in her description to get out of that place in order to have a free life. So her and her brother were in this camp for some time, and she said she just got really lucky because it was actually her sister that was selected by a church and was brought to America. And then once her sister was here, she was able to come here, then her brother, one by one. And I don't know, like when she was talking about this, and I think with the closeness of the anniversary of 9/11, my mind was just blown to just think about, makes me so emotional, like how fortunate we are to be born in this country. You know, here we have women and children running for their lives, risking to be raped and shot and kidnapped and beaten and all of these horrible things that she tells me that happened along her trail to get from the town she was in to this refugee camp just to be sanctioned under the United Nations. And as she's telling me this, I'm just thinking about this 19-year-old girl and what she had to go through and the fear she had to overcome every single day, not just to leave her town, but to try to get to this refugee camp. And then to be able to trust these people that you've never met, to take your sister to another country where you don't know a word of their language, and then just follow her into this unknown land, and just all of the risk that she had to take and all of the things that she didn't know, and how uncomfortable that would be, how scary that would be. And while I use that as an analogy, as a crazy of analogy as it is, it just shows the parallel of how often we as humans have fear, but it's all perceived in our mind. She had real fear running for your life to a refugee camp to get sanctioned by the United Nations. Those are real fears. Those are not real fears that, thank God, most of us have to deal with in our life. We're trying to break through to the next level, build a business, create wealth, and we're afraid of what some stranger might say on the internet or what someone from your town or your family might think. Like, when you really put this into perspective, what the hell are you afraid of? It should actually be a crime not to go after everything that's on your heart. It should be a crime to not go after, to achieve everything that you want, because you've been given such freedoms and such talents and such abilities that it should be illegal to squander them. You want to drop a line of revenue to go all in on something else, or you're going to be afraid of what someone's going to think, or that you're not going to be as successful as you once were. These are all perceived fears. You're not playing in front of a bus or afraid to use a limb or risking your life. If you make a wrong decision, my gosh, we put so much emphasis on little decisions that are insignificant. But if you just believe in your ability to figure it out, even if you make the wrong decision, you are going to be able to adjust and fix. And the lessons that you learn inside of those mistakes will be invaluable to getting you closer to the highest calling on your life. But if you don't first break through the bubble of protection that keeps you not safe, it keeps you stuck, then you are limiting your ability to go after everything that you want. And I don't know about you, but I always like to close a loop in the story. And you may be thinking about this lady I was talking about. And she had a daughter in this country. Her daughter's doing amazing. She applied to get into Harvard. She's currently on the wait list and living the life of her dreams. And it was bringing tears to her eyes and mine just to realize that all of the fear she had to face and all of the courage that she had to have in order to get where she wanted to go. But she did it. She faced it. She went through it. And she's on the other side of it. And she looks back with such gratitude and appreciation for the reverence of life that she has. So this is a very, very serious story compared to the fears that we experience in our life. But it's a great perception shift so that whatever you're looking at today, whatever you're facing, having the courage to stand up, face it, and being okay to live in the fear and do it anyways. That's what it's going to take to really win at life and business. This brings us to number 9, gratitude. Gratitude is a mindset, and it's even more than that. It's a practice. It's more than just something that you think about when someone gives you a gift or does something nice for you. Gratitude is living in a certain state of mind. It's like right now, you could be grateful for hearing that story and realizing that that's not your world, as that's an experience that you never had to deal with. And you can be immensely grateful for it. But our minds are so easily shifted to the next shiny thing or the problem or scrolling and being tripped up by comparison. Gratitude is one of those things that to really make an effort to create a practice and a habit, you start every single day in gratitude. That could be a 5-minute gratitude practice. And I've covered this in other episodes, but if you haven't heard it before, maybe you haven't, you just need to hear it again because heck, we only retain 7% of what we hear. Making sure that when you start your day, rather than going for that phone, opening the email box, or dealing with some sort of reaction, making sure that you start your day in the right state of mind. This could be 5 minutes just staying in bed, even if you don't meditate or pray, but reciting all of the things you're grateful for. I always say, before I start my day, I find 5 things to be grateful for before my feet hit the floor. You can take that little rhyme if you want, but whatever you do, it could be being grateful for a roof over your head, for living in a country with freedom, for having food in your refrigerator, a job to go to, a family that's healthy. There are so many things that we can be grateful for. I can tell you that living where I live every day, I wake up and just look at the sunshine. I look at the mountains. I am so grateful for the bed that I have, the house that I have, the dogs that are laying next to me, that I don't have to shovel snow. There are so many things around us, but we get what we focus on. So if you're focusing on the problems of your life, you're going to get more problems, and those problems are going to be magnified. But if we're looking for reasons to be grateful, they are all around us every day. I'll tell you, if you want to take this up a notch, if you say, Candy, I already have a gratitude practice, this is nothing new. Of course, it's nothing new because science, things that actually work, that are real, aren't necessarily new. But if you want to set yourself apart and you want to take this up a whole other level, I'll give you a challenge. Can you find gratitude for all the pain, all the challenge, all the adversity that's come into your life? Can you appreciate all of the mistakes, all of the failures, all of the things that you thought were taken away from you or you didn't have the opportunity to do? Because I'll tell you what, when you start to feel grateful for the pain and the challenges that you experience, and you start to see why they happened and what you were able to pull from it, you will create such a new vibrancy for your life and such a deeper level of gratitude for everything that you have. Because without it, you wouldn't be where you are today. You wouldn't be who you are today. And this isn't saying that whatever horrific challenge or trauma that you experienced is somehow a positive thing. I'm sure there are people listening that experience things no human should ever have to. But when you know that those negative situations happened in your life and you still got to where you are right now, you still got through it, you survived, you were here, having that level of gratitude for life is when you're able to have massive gratitude for who you are, what you have, and where you are right now. True happiness will never be found acquiring things. It is really found at the intersection of appreciation and aspiration. You can still aspire for more while appreciating where you are. And I promise you, the more grateful you are, the more you focus on it, more and more great things will come into your life. I don't know how it works, but I know that it does work. And that's why it's one of the key pieces of these 12 mindsets. All right, I went on a rant. Let's go to number 10. Number 10 is to have a map. And I know having a map doesn't sound like a mindset, but it is in my mind. So having a map, mapping it out. There's an old saying that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And it's so true. Making sure that we talk about this in business a lot, making sure that to create a powerful business, to have a business foundation, it's necessary to have a plan, a map of where you're going. This doesn't mean that you need 24 steps in advance. You just have to have a vision of what you're going to create. And this is so important because if you don't plan your life, if you don't have a vision for what you're trying to create. Your life is just going to happen. And one day you're going to wake up, whether you're 30, 50, 70, and you're going to wonder, what the hell happened to the last 50 years? What did I do for the last decade? And I promise you, I'm almost hesitating in my mind to say this because it makes me feel pretty old, but I'm going to say it anyways. It does go faster. And I think anyone that's over the age of 25 or 30 understands exactly what I'm saying. It will go faster than you can even imagine. When I sit where I'm sitting right now and I look back realizing that I've been doing business and investing and building wealth for 25 years, for more of my life than I haven't, I can't tell you how fast it went by. So make sure that you map out that life so that you don't wake up when you're my age or older and realize that you didn't create the life that you wanted. Have a map of what you want your life to look like. This can be done in so many ways. As humans, we're visual. Most people are visual learners more than auditory learners, which is why most people only retain 7% of what we hear. But making sure that you're doing the things to visually map out your life won't only help you get there. It helps your brain see more people, opportunities, and avenues for you to get there more quickly. I don't care if you create a vision board and save a bunch of photos on your computer or put them on your phone, or you journal, or you make notes, or you write it all out. And hell, if your life isn't where you want it to be, I'd encourage you to do all of those things because there is a science to it. Your reticulating activating system in your brain will help you sort through other things in your life to get you there more quickly. And seeing it in front of you will help you every single day. Again, it's a law of attraction. I don't know how it works, but it just does. 2 things that are super easy, simple to do. If you haven't already, think about creating a vision board. If you've never done it, my gosh, I used to do this all the time back in the day with magazines. All of the brick and mortar businesses back in the day, like mine, had subscription magazines, Vogue and Cosmo and all those different ones. If you're probably older than 35, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We would actually make this as part of our annual meetings. We would have all of these magazines and I would have the staff cut them out, make a poster board, very old school before computers and all of that jazz. We would cut them out so that we could always reference and look at the goals that we had for our life, what we were looking to create. Nowadays, it's a lot easier. Go to Google and search images that really speak to you. Create the map, if you will, of what you want, what you're visually bringing to your life. It could be a health goal. It could be a house. It could be a certain amount of money. It could be a lifestyle. It could be a family. It could be anything for you. It could be a contribution that you want to make. It could be a team size for your company. I used to do a vision board every single year for years. And I can tell you that the house I bought, I am not joking. I will show this to you. There is in 2013. So this was 10 years ago. I randomly this was probably one of the last years that I made a vision board because unfortunately what happens is when you get to a certain level of success, you start to think you don't need to do the things you did. And I wish I would have continued to do it every single year. But a few years ago, I stopped doing this. But in 2013, I put a house. No exaggeration. I put a house on the vision board that I was working on. And it wasn't even something that I have wanted to go achieve that year. It was just something that spoke to me when I was doing this. And it was a white house with stucco, with a terracotta roof and a governor's driveway lined with palm trees. Now, just for context, let me tell you, I'm originally from the Northeast and there are no palm trees. There were no palm trees and no stucco because stucco doesn't work in the winter climates. So we didn't have any of these things, but that house spoke to me and I said, I always want to live in a house like that. I put that on the board in 2013. Never thought twice of it. When I exited my company in 2019 and I moved to where I moved to, what house do you think I bought? I bought a white stucco house with a terracotta roof with a governor's driveway lined with palm trees. You think that's by accident? Or do you think that I was subconsciously programming my brain for the life that I wanted to live? And when my brain recognized it, all those years later, it said, that one. Whatever it is that you want to create, if you visually see a map, you are going to get there, recognize it, and achieve it more quickly. And remember, this isn't the map of how to get there. You don't want to overwhelm your mind with all the how-to steps. This is the end map, the end result. This picture is your address. Because if you start driving in your car and you don't have an exact destination, an exact address, my friend, you're just going to be spinning in circles, never knowing if you arrive. Create the map and then believe in your own ability to figure it out. Number 11, start before you're ready. Now, there are so many people that I hear preaching, just start, do something. And although I believe that to a degree, I also think that having a well-set plan for what you want to accomplish so that you're not just creating noise is so much more powerful. But you also have to make sure that you're starting before you're fully prepared. That's key. I am not the person that you tell some lofty, crazy idea to. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's going to work. That's great. I tend to be more in reality, but I also believe wholeheartedly that you will never be fully prepared for anything that you are unsure of. You will never be fully prepared for risk. You will never be fully prepared to grow. So you can't ever wait till something is perfect. 80% and done is always better than waiting for 100%, because indecision is far worse than making a bad decision. If you make a bad decision, you get something wrong, we can fix it. But indecision is where the problem lies. It's when you're at a standstill, you have no progress, no momentum, and then you'll start to second guess your ability even more. You'll doubt yourself and your belief. And now we get ourselves in a victimization spiral that'll be so difficult to climb out of. Starting now, 80% unprepared is always better than waiting 2 years until you have something 100%. Not only will you create more revenue or more wealth or more impact or more growth in those 2 years, but you'll be able to learn so much more in the process. So the best thing I can tell you is to be prepared, to have a map, but be okay with being a little messy. Have structure, have a plan, but be comfortable to adjust on the fly. Being okay with not fully being prepared, being okay to being a little messy is going to result in big dividends in your life and in your business. And that brings us to the very last one, number 12. And probably the one that to me is what I feel is the most important. Although they all interlock and connect in some way, this last one to me is not only important to me personally, but when I was doing a lot of research for the book and I was figuring out like what really makes people happy. Why do people get up and do certain things? Why do they want to achieve certain things? Why do they want to grow certain ways? Why do they make mistakes that they make? And I did a lot of research on the 6 human needs. And Tony Robbins, obviously within our generation, has really put a ton of time and work into this. And prior to him, it was Maslow. And Maslow did all of the studying on the 4 human needs. Tony included 2 new. And when I was doing a lot of research on this, I found that there was one thing that everyone seemed to miss. There was one thing that I couldn't find in my research about the 6 human needs that really talked about how they interconnected, but also which ones would feed others. Most human needs are specific. They don't actually overlap. If you're somebody that your 2 top human needs are significance and ego, well, I'll tell you, that can really drive you down a bad path. If you're driven by uncertainty and growth, that can also, they can definitely be problematic. But there was one of the 6 that really provided all of the others. And when I individually researched each of the other 5, it didn't do it. And if you don't know the human needs, I'll rattle them off quickly. I talk about it, but you can certainly study Tony Robbins' work. He talks about it far more. And then if you want to go back to the originator, you can look at Maslow. But it's basically saying that all humans truly need these 6 things in their lives. And these are what's driving our behaviors and our decisions and our habits. And it's the need for certainty, for uncertainty or variety, for love and connection, for significance, for growth and contribution. Those are the things that every single human needs in order to fully be fulfilled, to feel alive. But there was one that I found that really provide all the other ones, and that's contribution. It's contributing to something beyond ourselves, figuring out what we were put on this earth to contribute. And that doesn't just mean our bank accounts or our wealth, but it's creating something, some service to the world that's far beyond sales of your business. It's why you feel alive when you wake up. It's being a part of something that's beyond you, something that's greater, something that's bigger, that creates ripple effects in the world and has positive change, having a mindset of contribution, being wired for generosity and giving is really how life starts to make sense. It's when we start to see our place in the world. It's what gets you to have excitement when you don't really want to show up. It's what pulls you out of bed in the morning and keeps you up at night. So I'd like to ask you, how are you contributing? What are you really giving? When we are looking inward, when we're looking at ourselves selfishly, and we're not being grateful and we're not contributing, those two things are the fastest way to turn off pain in our mind. The fastest way for you to forget about your problems is to help somebody else with theirs. Again, I don't know how all of this stuff works, but I can promise you unequivocally that it does. The brain cannot process pain and gratitude at the same time, just like it cannot process pain and contribution. Because when you're contributing to something outside of yourself, you stop looking inward and you start looking at the magnitude of life. Because I know this podcast is all about building businesses and making money and generating wealth, but I promise you, if you miss this part, if you miss this piece and you only listen to all the other stuff, you will not create the rich life that you deserve, because a rich life is not an accumulation of wealth. It's what you do with the life force that you have while you're here. And if you don't have any of these other mindsets, if you don't have belief in your own ability to figure it out, if you're not persistent, if you're not optimistic, if you don't want a lot of responsibility, if you have a hard time being your own cheerleader, if you're not quite sure about intuition, if fear is really scary to you, if you don't have a gratitude practice, if you don't have everything mapped out, I truly believe you could miss all of the first 11 things I shared with you. And you can start right here and you can still win at life. But I'll promise you that if you have this last one and the first 11, you will be able to do some incredible things with your life. Coming from a place of contribution, giving yourself to a cause, a mission, being a part of something that's greater than you. It's really what life's about. And I really, truly believe in my heart that that's why we're all here. So I would encourage you that if you aren't a part of something, if you don't at least volunteer 10% of your time, 10% of your money, and 10% of your wealth at your death, please allow this podcast to be the push that you need to do it now. Because I know everybody listening has talents and skills and abilities that can serve so many people and eventually change the world. And I don't know about you, but man, that sounds a lot more powerful than building a multi-million or billion-dollar portfolio. Money amplifies who we are. If you are a giving person, the more money you make, the more assets you have, the more net worth that you've got, the more good you are going to do. That's why I want you to make more, to create more, to have more, so that you can do more with it. All right, guys, I want you to go out there and make it an incredible day. You were given a gift by waking up today. Your heart beats without you thinking about it. Your lungs open and breathe air without your effort. You are still here, and you're here for a reason. Go out and make it great. Thanks so much for tuning in and spending this time with me. We'll see you next time.